Hi, this is Phil with Castle again. In the previous video we unboxed and unpackaged the Castle TSM-22 Pocket Cutting Machine. In this video we're going to do the final assembly and test the unit. Make sure you check out the link below for the unboxing video. Let's get started. So on the back of the bench I have all my parts laid out ready for assembly. First thing we're going to do is install the airline to the top of the pneumatic cylinder. So I've removed the protective cap. Now we're going to take the fitting at the end of the urethane hose and we're going to go ahead and screw that in. Note that the fitting already has pipe thread sealing on it. At this point all we need to do is tighten this up. If you prefer, you can remove the elbow from the urethane line, install the fitting, and then reinstall the line. At this point we're going to pull the power cord out of the cabinet along with the foot pedal. We're just going to push the carriage out of the way, remove the foot pedal, and we can continue on. We got one last thing to unpackage, that's the router stop plate. Just a quick look at the router stop plate. I'm going to lower the lid on the unit and point to a fastener that we have to remove so that we can install the router stop plate. And we're just going to remove that. And we'll set the carriage bolt, the washer, and the nut aside, and then we'll grab our router stop plate. I'm showing the proper orientation of the router stop. So I'm simply going to take the top of the bracket, slide it into the slot, lift it up, and let the bottom slide into the slot. We can now take our carriage bolt. We can put that back into the mounting hole, into the slot, into the router stop plate bracket. And then we're going to put the washer and the lock nut back on. Now we can lower the lid and tighten the nut on the router stop bracket. You'll notice two pieces of tape. We're simply going to align the bracket in between the two pieces of tape, and then we can snug that nut up. Also want to mention that this is the web adjustment bracket, and we'll go into that in further detail in a different video. At this point we can remove the tape. Now it's time to install the gas spring for support of the machine top. Here's the appropriate hardware to install the gas spring. One washer onto the threaded stud. We're going to install that into the hole into the cabinet. Washer, the lock nut, and then finally we can tighten that up with a wrench. And we'll repeat this procedure on the top of the machine. Same hardware, two washers and a lock nut. Again, washer first. Then the other washer and the lock nut. And again, we can snug that up. Now on to installation of the worktop. So I'm going to point out 6 mounting locations. There's 4 and then the 2 down below. We've got the router bit slot, the locking bolt, and then the 4 alignment lines. Those are used for quickly aligning your work when cutting pockets. So I'm going to flip the worktop around. I'm going to line up the router slot and the mounting holes. So we're going to take 4 socket head cap screws and we're going to place those in the 4 outer mounting holes. Now I'm going to follow those up, each one with a washer and a lock nut. Here I've got the dust diverter and the last 2 socket head cap screws, which will be installed in the last 2 mounting holes. We got the cap screws in, and then we're going to grab 2 washers and 2 lock nuts. Now we can install the dust diverter by aligning the 2 mounting holes to the remaining 2 socket head cap screws. Now I can place a washer and a nut on each socket head cap screw. Now we're ready to tighten all 6 nuts. We have provided a Allen wrench for the top of the socket head cap screws. And we're just going to snug those up. At this point, we're going to install the lid plate. So here we have it here with the appropriate hardware. 2 carriage bolts. And then on the bottom side, we've got a washer and lock nut for each carriage bolt. At this time, we're just going to finger tighten the nuts. Notice that there's a third hole on the plate. This is a threaded hole that's going to be used for locking down the top. Now we're going to lower the lid of the machine. And then our socket head cap screw that's used for locking down the top, we're going to align that to the threaded hole in the lid plate. Just snug that up. It doesn't have to be super tight. Now we can tighten the 2 nuts on the lid plate. I'm going to take a ratchet with an extension and tighten each nut. When in use, make sure that the cap screw is firmly attached to the lid plate. Whenever we need to access the inside of the machine, all we have to do is loosen the cap screw, and then we can lift the worktop. Here I'm going to show the easy process of locking down the worktop. Now for storage of the Allen wrench, we do provide a magnet, which you can simply place on the side of the machine. Now we're going to mount the cabinet door. Here's our door. You'll notice the sockets and the hinges. We're just going to set that on the opposing hinges with the pins. Now we can mount the door hardware. So we have the T-handle, a bolt, and the latch. Pay close attention to the orientation of the latch. Place the bolt into the latch through the mounting hole in the door, and then we're going to install the T-handle. I'm going to go ahead and snug that up with a wrench, and the door is installed. Since the routers may have shifted in transit, it's important to make sure that the U-bolts on the routers are secure and tight. Here I'm pointing to the 4 nuts on the U-bolts that we need to check. Just a note, we want to make sure that the nuts are nice and snug, but we do not want to over-tighten them. And just like the U-bolts on the routers, we want to verify that both router collets are still nice and snug. Please note that the router wrenches are in the hardware package. Built-in tool storage keeps the needed tools right at hand. Here I'm pointing to the air inlet and also the flow control knob. Here I've assembled some 1/4-inch pipe fittings with a quick disconnect. That's so we can just quickly test the machine. Here I'm going to attach the air supply. We need clean, dry air with a minimum of 85 psi. And finally, we're going to attach some temporary dust control to test the unit. Here I'm going to point to 2 safety buttons. These need to be depressed in order for the machine to complete its cycle. This simply happens when you put your workpiece up to the fence. So we're going to turn on the unit. We're going to push the foot pedal. You'll notice that the machine does not cycle. Now I'm going to push the workpiece into the safety button, push the foot pedal, and we can see the machine cycle. Okay, we're ready to make our first test pocket. We're going to turn on our dust control, and then we're going to align our workpiece to the alignment marks on the work table. There's one pocket. Move it over to the other line. There's our second pocket. You can see what a beautiful job the TSM-22 does. Nice, crisp, clean pockets. I'm going to point to what we call the web, and that's the distance from the end of the board and the bottom of the pocket. This is adjustable by moving the router stop plate that we installed earlier. You also notice that the pilot holes are nice and centered, and the screw sits in there towards the bottom of the pocket. Shot of the overall process. There's one pocket, two pockets, and we're all done. Beautiful. So we've assembled and tested the Castle TSM-22 Pocket machine, and it's now ready for production. Stay tuned for more upcoming videos on the TSM-22. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.